Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang. Welcome back for some more solo role Mangging. So previously I had been doing a thing with Tales of Argosa and trying to turn Lost Mines of Phandelver or Phandelver and Below into like an old school hex crawl. And we had some fun with that. But I hit a point where I kind of went on a hiatus for like 7 months. And I had thought about picking it up again, but it was kind of tricky because I had lost some information in that 7 months related to the campaign, and I kind of had forgotten a lot of stuff. So I was like, I probably could pick it up, sort of, but it might be easier to just start something fresh. So it's a bummer, but we had a good time with it, so it's fine. So when thinking about something new to start, I thought, you know, Tales of Argosa is kind of my favorite RPG. Especially like an old school fantasy RPG. But it might be interesting to keep, you know, trying different things and stuff that I haven't done before. And so I thought about Dungeon Crawl Classics, which I don't think I've really featured on this channel before. And recently, or, you know, a few months ago, I picked up a copy of Caverns of Thracia, like the new sort of updated version that they put out, Goodman Games put out for Dungeon Crawl Classics. They also put out a version for 5th edition D&D, but I had no interest in that. And so I picked that up with the thought that I might run it for my family at some point, because Caverns of Thracia is like one of kind of the big ticket, like classic, not mega dungeon. I don't think it's really classified as a mega dungeon, but it's like it's a dungeon campaign for sure. I don't know if the original module had like a recommendation for like or like a guideline for how many levels it might carry your characters through. I also don't know if I have a room count for Caverns of Thracia. It's 4 separate levels of a dungeon. The original, the book here that I have, and to be clear up front, I don't have a PDF for this. I don't really want to spend $42 or whatever on a PDF. I just bought the book because I plan on just running it at the table, and I don't really need the PDF most of the time. But yeah, so I just bought the book. I don't have the PDF. But the original, the book contains both the original presentation of Caverns of Thracia and their updated version. So obviously we're going to be running the updated version for Dungeon Crawl Classics, but the original one is about 75 pages. Which is substantial. But yeah, I don't think it classifies as a mega dungeon, just a big dungeon. But yeah, it's always kind of mentioned when you're talking about the OSR and like amazing classic modules. And I have not really read it. I don't really know much about it. I don't know why exactly it's so beloved, but it's mentioned enough that I was like, I gotta get it. And I had been holding off for a while on getting it because I knew that Goodman Games was putting out like an updated version of it. And it's a pretty nice book, I gotta say. But it is written for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Now, we could run it with anything, and I was planning on running it for my family with Tales of Argosa. But for purposes of this solo experiment, why don't we just fucking run it with the DCC? Before we get to that, though, while looking into this and setting this up, I saw that they actually put out a funnel adventure to sort of lead into their new updated version of Caverns of Thracia called Grave Robbers of Thracia. So that's actually where we're going to start with. We're going to do a DCC funnel as intended, and this will be a good lead-in to Caverns. So I have not read this either. I have no idea what this is going to entail, but it should be pretty fun. But first, we have to talk about Dungeon Crawl Classics. This is not a particularly new game at this point. This came out around when D&D 3.5 was in its heyday, so it's been a good number of years. I don't know if we have a date somewhere. Released as a beta version in June 2011. I think 4th edition was out at that point, right? Wasn't the 4th edition like 2008 or something? So I guess 3.5 was not in its heyday. It was sort of past its heyday, but this was obviously a big push away from 4th edition's mentality to go back to the old school way of doing things. And Goodman Games had been publishing modules and stuff for Dungeons and Dragons for quite a while, in an attempt to bring things back to an old school way of playing. And then they were like, well, we may as well at this point just make our own game. And that's where Dungeon Crawl Classics came about. So Dungeon Crawl Classics is essentially a hybrid somewhat of like BX D&D, like old school D&D, and like 3.5 edition D&D. So, you know, in a lot of ways, it's pretty old school. You can run, and we have run in the past on this channel, Dungeon Crawl Classics modules using old school stuff like Shadow Dark or OSC or whatever, Tales of Argosa. But it also incorporates some certain mechanics and design philosophies that are a bit more modernized, as we'll see, like some sort of, well, we'll see. You'll see. I don't actually have a great deal of experience playing DCC above the funnel level. Most of my experience is actually playing funnel adventures at conventions. So I'm really excited to get past the funnel. I mean, I'm interested in the funnel, of course, but getting past the funnel, getting to level 1, get level 2, and actually having proper characters and stuff, I don't have a great deal of experience with that. So that'll be interesting. But we start, and it gives us an overview of what makes DCC different. And it doesn't really mention it here. It mentions it in these other spots. But there's a thing in DCC called the dice chain. So rather than like advantage or disadvantage or things like that, you actually shift occasionally the size of the die that you're going to roll. And certain classes and certain stuff, as you level up, you'll actually get additional dice to roll during combat rounds of different sizes. So you might get like a fighter might get 1 attack per turn that uses a D20, and then they might get a second attack per turn, but they have to roll like a D12 to try and hit. Things like that. If you have like an advantage of some sort on a dice roll, instead of rolling a D20, you might roll a D24. Much has been said about the dice chain mechanic. It has never really been a big selling point for me. It's never been something like, I really want to take this and use it in other games. Because advantage almost always feels good when you roll. You know, you get to roll twice, you take the higher result. Like, that feels good a lot of the time. But if you roll a D24 compared to a D20 and you still roll like a 3, it feels pretty shitty. Granted, advantage, you can roll shitty twice in a row, but it's unlikely, or it feels unlikely. It's hard to say. I don't know. We're definitely going to get some hands-on experience here with the dice chain, but that is a big aspect of DCC for sure. Other things, DCC does not have prestige classes, attacks of opportunity, feats, or skill points. This is if you're coming from like 3.5 edition. Class and race are one and the same. You are a wizard or an elf. So yes, has race as class, which is not something I'm particularly attached to, but it's fine. We have ascending AC because it makes the most sense. We have 3 saving throws: fortitude, reflex, and willpower. Again, that's a pretty modern way of doing it. We'll get into spellcasting, which is one of the best parts of DCC. Certainly one of my favorite parts. Clerics never lose a spell when it's cast. However, if they fail to cast, they may increase their natural failure range. And by the end of the day, they may automatically fail on more rolls than just a natural one. We have critical hit tables. Those are a lot of fun. And you can burn off ability scores to enhance dice rolls. All characters can burn luck. Wizards and elves can burn other abilities. So yes, luck is a stat in this game, and you can burn it in order to increase a dice roll. You can get luck back, I believe, but in a convention setting, which is, again, most of my experience, luck is just there to get burned, and you don't give a shit because you're not playing ever again. So we're going to be starting with a funnel, which means we have just a pack of level 0 characters. And we're going to be generating those automatically and importing them into Foundry. There's a nice little system for doing that easily. Characters have somewhat familiar ability scores, but not quite the normal D&D set. You have strength, agility, stamina, personality, intelligence, and luck. And then, based on your luck score, you get sort of a bonus to something based on this random table, based on your luck modifier. This could be a penalty as well if you have a negative luck modifier. You can see the ability score modifier table here. So if you have a 9 to 12 in the ability, you have nothing. No modifier, which is the most likely result of 3d6. 13, 14, 15 is +1, 16, 17 is +2, 18 is +3. So again, it's pretty old school. It's hard to get like anything above a 0 or +1 in an ability modifier. Most characters are going to be pretty mundane. But yeah, so your luck score can modify all sorts of stuff like damage rolls, attack rolls, saving throws, magical healing rolls, so on and so forth. And luck can be rolled for if the DM calls for it, just based on something that would be resolved entirely through luck alone. And yeah, you can burn it, so you could burn 6 points of luck to get a +6 modifier in a roll. Luck can be restored over the course of their adventure. This restoration process is loosely linked to the character's alignment. Characters that act against their alignment may find themselves suddenly unlucky. Thieves and halflings get to renew their luck score at a defined rate as discussed in their class descriptions. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into all the class stuff later. The funnels are going to be pretty quick, pretty easy to get into, obviously. And a lot of this is going to be very familiar to anyone that's played any form of D&D. So for 0 level characters, we start with 1d4 hit points modified by our stamina modifier. We get 5d12 copper pieces, a randomly determined piece of equipment, randomly determined occupation. Based on our occupation, we get possession of 1 weapon and training in its use, or possession of some trade goods, +0 modifier to attack rolls and all saving throws. We also get to use a crit die of 1d4 on crit table 1. Yeah. So here's the giant occupation table, all sorts of fun options. And some of these will determine your race as well. So, you know, a good chunk of these will determine if you're a dwarf, an elf, a halfling, and if it doesn't specify, then you are, of course, just a normal, boring human, which is going to be most of them. Okay, so, I mean, there's really not much that needs to be said then. So we're going to roll up our... I already tested it, but we'll roll up some new ones. Yeah. Import actors. We're going to import 0 level from Purple Sorcerer. And we're just going to copy this. Import. There we go. So we have a beetle, a dock worker, an herbalist, and a merchant. Not the most heroic lineup, perhaps. But they're level 0 peasants, and we're going to find out why exactly they're going into this horrific situation. So we have, let's see, the beetle. I don't know what a beetle is, actually. An official who may usher, keep order, make reports, assist in religious functions. Okay, so he's sort of a constable. He's like a religious constable. So sort of a cleric in training here, I guess, is what we got. So yeah, he actually ended up with a 16 strength, which is very nice. 13 agility, 10 stamina, 9 personality, 11 intelligence, 9 luck. Pretty solid character. So that means he has +2 to all his melee attacks and +2 to melee damage. He comes in with a staff, a piece of chalk, and a holy symbol. This is solid. So he's got, yeah, +2 to hit and 1d4 +2 damage on the staff. Now, sometimes the staff is a versatile weapon where you can two-hand it for d6 or something. I'm going to imagine that's not the case here. No. No. Okay. So it's just d4 +2, but that's fine. Alright. Yeah, so he's going to be pretty solid. He does only have 3 hit points, but again, it's really tough to have more than that. So that's a fine roll for our purposes. Then we have a dock worker. We know what that is. He only has 8 strength, 9 agility, 10 stamina, but 15 personality. 8 intelligence, 7 life. He's really not a very good character. And because he has -1 to luck, and his luck roll was on missile attack rolls, he has -1 to any time he would try to use a ranged weapon. Since he also has -1 strength, that's -1 to melee attacks and damage as well. He has a pole, but he's really going to be pretty shitty. He's got a late RPG book. Is that an option? They must have an expanded list or something on the site. But he does have a crowbar, which is damn useful, and it's also worth 2 fucking gold pieces, which is, well, it's a great sum at this point, so I'm sure we'll be taking that crowbar off his body. We have an herbalist. Again, 7 strength, 11 agility, 16 stamina, 13 personality, 14 intelligence, 7 luck. So if this one survives, I'd say we have an okay wizard of some kind. But easier said than done. -1 to melee attacks and melee damage, of course. They have a club, some herbs, and a lantern. Well, that's pretty handy. Also, it's worth 10 gold. Where the fuck did you get that? And lastly, a merchant. Pretty shitty stats. 15 personality, though. 13 luck. They're born under the loom, so they have +1 to all skill checks. That's pretty handy. Now, if they burn luck, though, that's going to get worse. Okay, and they have a dagger. They come with 4 gold and some rations. 1 day of rations. All right, now, this is a funnel, right? So we're level 0, we're peasants. We have 3 hit points or less, really. Shit stats, no loot, you know, really just terrible. Usually, this set of 4 would belong to 1 player in a group of like 5 players. We've done a funnel before, so I'm going to be running it kind of similarly. Just to reduce the amount of overhead that I have to deal with, we're just going to be operating within sets of like 4. You know, normally each player would have like a set of 4 peasants, and they might survive at the end with 1 or 2, and that 1 character, whatever, that survives would be their new character, level 1 character. For our purposes, it's going to be a little bit murkier. I don't really want to end, obviously, with 1 character. I'd like to end with 4, so we have a party of 4. But I don't want to keep replenishing 1 at a time, but it's probably best if I do replenish 1 at a time, so we always have 4. We'll see how it goes. We'll play it by ear. Maybe no one will die. Maybe this will be just easy peasy. But this is our set of 4. And, you know, DCC is again, from my experience, it's kind of a swingy system, right? Because you're rolling a lot of d20s and stuff, and you're adding like +0 or +1. I mean, you're entirely at the whims of the dice for a lot of this, especially for a funnel. And that's the point. The funnel is kind of meant to just be a fun sort of slapstick meat grinder experience. And that's probably what it's going to be. But yeah, this is our 4. I don't think we'll even bother naming them, because I don't know if any of these are going to survive for long. But that's what we got. All right, so let's look at Grave Robbers of Thracia. So this is meant for 4 to 6 players, running a total of 16 to 24 0-level characters. We are not doing that, but it's all right. I mean, it helps if we imagine that we do have a pack of like 16 to 24 peasants, so that we're not just constantly bumbling into some new guy that just shows up. Like there is a big group, but these 4 are kind of at the forefront of everything. All right. Your village has long been a refuge of tranquility. Situated near the edge of the jungle and less than a mile from the warm waters of the Starry Archipelago, life has been simple and idyllic. That all began to change several months ago when word began trickling in from other small communities in the area, tales of empty graves and disappearances in the night. As time progressed, the stories began trickling off, and it seemed whatever the root cause had been resolved. Okay, that was not the case. As those whispered tales became fewer in number, so too did contact with those other communities. Soon there were no visitors to your village at all. Concerned, you sent runners to the other communities. Those who returned spoke of deserted communities, empty burial grounds, and signs of something which had burrowed upward into homes. It was not long after that the village's burial mounds began to sink as if disturbed from below. The priests were concerned and went to investigate. Their bodies were found 2 days later. They had been killed and dragged into the jungle. Whatever had done it had ripped their livers from their bodies. An armed party then went to the burial grounds and dug into the mounds, discovering a network of claustrophobic tunnels running between the sites. They all seemed to stretch off to the south, deeper into the jungle. There was much discussion on how best to proceed, but no solution was settled upon. Then last night came the first disappearance. A family taken in the night by something that burrowed beneath. The earthen tunnel was already beginning to collapse when it was found this morning, but it too pointed south. An evil has come to plague the village, and with no other recourse, you were tasked to take what weapons you had at hand and root it out. Failure could mean that there will not be a home to which you may return. Hiking southwards, you have come upon a small ruin, an ancient temple or shrine. Perhaps the ancient gods will grant you aid on your quest. Okay. And so we set out. Within a jungle clearing stands an ancient ruin of a long-forgotten temple, or perhaps large shrine. Most of its domed roof has collapsed, and several of the supporting pillars have fallen. The jagged pieces of marble stick up from the ground like broken teeth. The circular foundation has crumbled along the edges, and jungle vines have grown into the cracks, spiderwebbing throughout the 4 staircases ascending 10 feet to the raised area. Amidst the debris is a smaller stone structure. That it is cube-shaped instead of being rounded is rather incongruous. Okay, so... yeah, one thing I would say that DCC... you know, I like a lot of DCC modules. I do. And we've run a bunch of them. They're really good. And I've run plenty for my family and so on and so on and so forth. They're good. One thing I would say is that they are sort of specifically formatted, I think, to be much better in a physical version rather than PDF. This is a good example. Like, this map is turned so that it's not not super legible in just this normal PDF view. Not really a big issue at all in a physical copy, but here it's kind of annoying. I have to crane my head. But okay, so we've come to this... I wish you could just rotate, like, a page. But no, okay. We'll just do that first. So this is our village, I guess. We've traveled through the woods. And we've come to this shrine. So it's got steps leading up this circular area. This sort of broken dome. And in the middle is this cubic structure. There's not much for it, so... oh, I also you can't rotate left. What the fuck? I mean, we'll very cautiously approach, I suppose. And of course, the beetle is up front. Beetle Bailey. And he's got his staff out and holy symbol wrapped around his neck. The raised area is choked with rubble from the once grand domed roof. In the center stands a cubic marble structure with stone doors on each of its sides. The carvings on its sides have been time and weather worn to near total illegibility. Slightly offset from each corner stand ancient bronze braziers, battered and marred by the stones which fell from above. Okay, and we have sort of a battle map someone has put together here. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say here. Slowly walk around the cubic structure. Each of the doors leading to the inner shrine are barred from within, but time has weakened those bars to the point where the doors may be forced open with a successful DC 10 strength check. 2 or more PCs working in conjunction automatically succeed. However, each of the doors are also trapped. Opening a door without first lighting a fire in each of the braziers results in a blade swinging down from above, striking anyone standing directly within 15 feet of the door. Wow, that seems really broad. Anyone within 15 feet of the door? Oh, standing directly within. Okay. Victims are struck for 1d10 damage. DC 12 reflex save for half. Close examination of the carvings, perhaps by making a rubbing of them, reveals that they are not religious in nature, at least not what one would expect to find at a shrine or temple. They are more akin to those which would decorate the tomb of a hero. Those looking to decipher the meaning of the imagery and who succeed at an appropriate DC 15 intelligence skill check realize that the carvings refer to a legendary lost Thracian legion that was reputed to have disappeared with a number of valuable artifacts as the antediluvian kingdom fell. Okay, so this is a really good example of what makes a funnel and why some people don't like funnels. old school gaming is filled with all sorts of traps and things like that, but one of the most important things for a DM to learn is how to telegraph those dangers so that players could use their wits and intelligence to possibly avoid them. Because, the players are at the mercy of the DM and what the DM tells them and informs them about. And it's never meant to be like a gotcha moment of like, aha, yeah, I caught you in my trap, you stupid idiots. Now you're dead. It's not meant to work like that. Here, however, we have these trapped doors. And they're pretty easily forced open. But then, if you open one without first lighting a fire in each of the braziers, Blade comes out and just probably kills almost anybody in there. And based on the text description that they give the DM to read out loud, nothing there really indicates that the braziers are of any significance or that the doors are in any way trapped. Now, what I think you could do, of course, is have someone try and check the doors for traps. But admittedly, I don't know if that's allowed. Because that's sort of a thief thing, right? Find trap and disable trap. That is very specifically a thief skill. Plenty of games would just say like, okay, you're checking for traps. Like any adventurer could theoretically do that just to examine the doors. But old school, the old school gaming tries to very much maintain the thief's importance in that aspect. And it's like, no, only the thief really knows how to what a trap looks like and how to find it. So, I'm not really sure how to properly do that for a funnel. Kind of curious enough to Google it, I suppose. Again, the module doesn't really specify. I think the amount of players that would run this, play in this, and actually light fires in all the braziers before trying the doors is really slim. Like, shockingly slim. And that's the thing. Like, you're just meant to kind of die. Like, this is the first sacrifice. Whoever tries to force open the door, they get their little moment of success where they force the door open and then they die. Because it's 1d10 damage. You have probably 2 or 3 hit points on average. And even if you roll and save for half, you're probably still dead. So, yeah, and this is what people don't like about funnels, is that it's all just kind of a random, just death machine. And it gives people a bad idea about DCC in general and old school gaming in general. That it's just like, well, that's just part of it. You either die or you don't die. It's all luck based and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it really, if you were going to introduce someone to old school gaming, a funnel is potentially really not a good option. Because it doesn't teach things like this. It doesn't teach you that, hey, you should think more carefully. You should think, more intelligently and methodically and stuff like that. Instead, it's just like, hey, you're gonna die. You're gonna have characters die. Get over it. that's just how it goes. So, you know, I like, you know, it's easy and fun and playing in conventions because it's really little buy-in. You know, you just show up, they give you 4 characters or whatever, and you just have some fun slapstick time. But as like the start to a campaign, or especially for introducing new players to RPGs, it does have some problems. And I think this is a really good example of that. No one is really going to like these braziers. And the game, the module, all that does not seem to indicate any countermeasure to this death. Because realistically, this merchant, this peasant, wouldn't know what a trap door looks like or not. So I hate to do it, because I like the beetle. But yes, he would try to force open the door. I think he would just try to bash it in himself, though, because he's very strong. So we are going to just roll a that. He rolled an 18. He's so strong. My beetle. Is one moment of success here. So we're just gonna say this eastern door, he just bashes right through, shoulder bashes his way through. And everyone else is kind of standing off to the side, I guess. He's a little impetuous. He just burst through while they were looking around or something like that. So the scythe comes down, swings down from above. He's gonna roll a DC 12 reflex save. Failed, so he takes the full brunt of a D10 of damage. 9, yeah. Decapitated. There goes the beetle. Head chopped off. The horror of the other 3. And you'd think at that point people would be like, well, this is terrible. Let's get the fuck out of here. Oh, they can take his loot. Or they can loot his corpse. I don't know what they'd really take. Maybe they would take the staff. I don't know if there's a good way to, like, copy this to someone else. There you go, perfect. And he'll take the chalk. The holy symbol will leave with the beetle. That's his property. Okay, so now let's just import another set of 4. And we'll take the first one on the list as the next person to step up. Oh, it went alphabetical. Shit. Well, it was the squire I saw, so... Squire. 1 hit point. Great. 13 strength, 13 agility, 15 intelligence. Okay, so you can do a lot. You can do a lot with this stuff. He's got +1 to melee attacks and missile attacks, +1 to melee damage. And he comes with a long sword and a steel helmet and a vial of holy water with 25 gold. Okay, so the long sword is certainly the best weapon we have in our collection here. 1d8 damage. He gets +1 to hit and +1 to damage. So he is potentially our best character. Maybe he'll survive and become a warrior or something. But alright, so we step over the beetle's corpse. Shame, shame. Despite its outwardly spacious appearance, the interior of this chamber feels cramped due to the spiral staircase in its center, descending down into the earth below. Flanking each of the doorways are a pair of metal brackets, each holding an ancient torch. Doors not already opened by the PC are blocked on this side with heavy wooden bars, however the wood is utterly rotten. The torches to either side of the door are quite dry, and if lit, burn hotly for 30 minutes before being exhausted. If used as a weapon, one of these burning torches inflicts 1d5 plus 1 damage. That's pretty solid. Okay, I think then we'll pretty much all take torches, right? Yeah, I mean, we all have a hand free, so we'll all grab a torch. As for lighting it, I'm not really sure. I have a lantern, but I don't know if I have a way to light the lantern. Let's assume one of the 15 other peasants we're with or something has flint and steel. That's a safe enough bet, right? So we've got lit torches. And we're going to now descend down into the earth. The squire leading the way. Well, apparently there's a well-concealed tunnel nearby. Somewhere over here. Alright, well, obviously I didn't think to look around the area, so... Yeah, okay. So then we're moving down to 2.1. The spiral stairs descend 20 feet below the surface, ending on a small stone landing at the top of a flight of stairs, which descend even further into the gloom beyond. The landing glistens with small puddles of dark water. The fetid water fills the air with the stink of must and mildew. Okay. Any PC not actively attempting to avoid the puddles steps in at least one of them while making their way to the second flight of stairs. The Thracian ghouls are well aware of how strong the odor of the water is and actively avoid it, using it as an advanced warning alert for the more feral among them, lurking on the ceiling in the hallway below. While the stairs descend, the ceiling remains constant, stretching straight forward into the gloom. Anyone intentionally looking outward along the ceiling, succeeding at a DC 12 intelligence check, catches a momentary glimpse of movement that is so fleeting that they are unsure if it was truly there at all. Okay. Who's our highest intelligence? Well, that would be the squire, who's out front. So we're gonna have him roll his intelligence just to see. Alright, he got a 14. So he does see this very momentary glimpse of movement, which is enough to get him a little worried. That there's something maybe on the ceiling above, in front of us. The thing is, it's like we have so few resources and stuff that it's kind of hard to do anything in preparation of this. The one thing that we could maybe do is take one of the torches and just throw it. Like, just throw it ahead of us where we saw the movement. And the dock worker is technically using, like, a pole and stuff, so he probably wants both of his hands free. So we'll have the dock worker try and launch his torch forward. So I'm just going to have him roll an agility. Okay, he rolled a 4, which is pretty abysmal. So it sort of just bounces off the wall nearby a little bit and lands in a puddle and goes out. So there's really not much else I can do other than just like being on alert and preparing for something, maybe coming from the ceiling to hopefully avoid a horrific ambush. The walls of the hallway are lined with worked stone. While the work is obviously amateur in nature, its squat, ugly blocks look quite sturdy. The ceiling here is shrouded in gloom, and a pair of doors flank the hallways that leads to an intersection ahead. A handful of scattered coins glitter upon the floor. Oh, well, that's no good. Also, we have a map of the shrine, of course. I think we're here. I think. 2.2, yeah, so we just hit the base of this landing. Okay. Lurking in the shadows above, scuttling along the ceiling, are 3 Thracian ghouls. These are the most feral among their harvest. Able to smell the mustiness carried on the boots of those who have stepped into the water in Area 2-1, the Verkalakis drop down from the ceiling, attacking by surprise. They have no real tactics and drop indiscriminately into the PCs, lashing about them in a mad attempt to gorge on flesh and blood. Okay. So, how do we want to adjudicate this one? Well, like we said, we were kind of had our eyes on the ceiling. We have torches lit. I think they're probably going to drop on us, but I don't think there's going to be any, like, ambush mechanics here. But they are going to be certainly right in our midst. They're going to be very feral and just rushing onto us. So now we need to get into the rules of combat and how that all works. It has been quite a while since I've looked into this. Combat, page 74. Pretty short chapter. In low-level play, especially with large masses of characters, use group initiative. Roll once for each player, applying the highest initiative modifier among his characters, then roll once for the monsters. When each player acts, he declares actions for all his characters. In higher level play, use individual initiative by character. Roll once for each character, apply all appropriate modifiers. First, determine surprise. If the characters were not aware of their opponents, or vice versa, they are surprised. Blah, 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 blah. Right. So, pretty simple stuff. In an action, you may move your normal speed and do one thing for each of your action dice. That's what I said before. So, right now, obviously, we only have one action die. Yeah, it's pretty simple stuff. You roll a 1, you get a fumble. You have to roll on the fumble table. Yeah. Here's the fumble table. And the fumble table is based on the armor that you're wearing. So if you're wearing heavy armor, you roll a D16. Moderate armor, D12. Light armor, D8. No armor, D4. And it's modified by the reverse of your luck modifier. So a +1 becomes a -1. Because you want to roll really low on this table. And then critical hits. There's all the critical hit tables. We're rolling on crit table 1 if we get one. And I think it's a D4 for us. Yeah. So it's not going to be super amazing, but yeah. So depending on the class you are or your level, level 5+ warriors get access to the biggest crit tables. So on and so forth. And then there's some other stuff, the Mighty D die, which I'm very excited about, but we don't get to use that until we get a warrior. Yeah, so it's pretty simple. Alright, so we'll just run this Theater of the Mind. I don't think I have to set anything up. So we're going to roll 1 initiative roll for our whole pack here, and 1 initiative roll for these ghouls. The Verkalakis. So they have a +1 initiative. And I don't know if we have any. Oh, we do have a +1. The Squire. Thank God for the Squire. So he's gonna roll his +1. He rolled a 3, and they rolled an 8. Okay, so it's not good for us. This is probably going to be the death of quite a few. Alright, so there's 3 of them sort of airdropping onto our pack. And we're just peasants, so we're not nearly prepared for this sort of situation. So we'll just do marching order from left to right here. So we're going to have 1 attacking the squire, 1 attacking the dock worker, and 1 attacking the herbalist. Okay? And they get a +3 to their attack roll, and they have this feeding cilia, so if they miss by 2 or less, they get they still do 1 damage, which is enough to kill the squire. So let's roll against the squire first. D20 +3. 13 is a hit. Doesn't matter, he's dead. Yeah, he only has 1 hit point, and you hit 0, you're dead, so that's it. Squire is gone. Second is the dock worker. That is also a hit. Not necessarily a kill. They have a D4. 1 damage. Okay, so he's down to 2. He gets shredded a little bit. I don't know. I don't think they have any sort of infection or, you know, ghoul thing. I don't think so. Okay, and then third is the herbalist. Oh, that is very much a hit for a D4. Only 1 damage, though. Okay. Shockingly, they managed to survive. Okay, so the squire's down and out. His longsword is laying on the ground. I'm going to bring in a 4th person. But in the next round, not this round. So it's just these 3 for this round. So I guess they're each gonna just try to take out one of these things. They're gonna swing wildly. And I may as well use the actual staff rather than the pole, because it gets +2 damage for some reason. Where is that coming from? +2 damage. It shouldn't. Unless that must have copied over. It copied over the whole formula. So no, it's the same amount of damage. Okay, so then we'll just use the pole. 1d4 -1, and -1 to the attack roll. And the AC that we're trying to hit is 12. So pretty slim odds here. He did hit AC 15 for 3 points of damage. Hot damn. They have 6 hit points each. So that first one is injured. Why don't we just pile on rather than splitting our damage? So we'll all try to take out this first one. He's going to swing the club, basically the same roll. He misses. And the merchant's trying to stab with his dagger. Aha! That is a kill. We have slain one of these foul undead creatures, although we haven't technically killed them. They are now entering a torpid state where they're unable to take any action. They can be reanimated by feeding them 1 hit point worth of flesh. The only way to permanently destroy a Thracian ghoul is by destroying its body with acid, fire, or divine power. Which brings up a good point. I probably should just be using the torches that are 1d5 +1. These 2 still have their torches. Torch. 1d5 +1. -1 from the -1 strength, so it would just be... Okay, that didn't... That didn't do anything. Why does that not do anything? I can't adjust this at all. There you go. 1d5 plus 1 minus 1. There you go. Okay. And we can just copy that over here. Because... no, he actually has minus... he's actually okay. Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Okay. So now it's a new round. We're going to bring in a new person. It only makes sense for the soldier to now step up. Alright, the soldier has 3 hit points, but only 9 AC, 9 strength, 8 agility, 12 stamina, 11 personality, 9 intelligence, 9 luck. Very, very average person here. He does have a spear, though, so he doesn't need to pick up the long sword. And he has a shield, which you'd think would have some value to us. Shields cannot be used with two-handed weapons, which I don't think a spear is. No, it's not a two-handed weapon. So that gives plus 1 AC, but minus 1 check penalty, but that's fine. I don't know why shield is here instead of here. There, 10 armor class. Okay. So yeah, he's got plus 0 to hit for 1d8 damage. Could be a lot worse. It's a good weapon. But yeah, we're definitely do not have many high strength characters now. Okay, so we need a new initiative now. Well, do we roll initiative each turn? It doesn't sound like you do. I don't know. I was prepared to roll initiative each turn. But no, I don't think we do. So I think the 2 undead get another go before we get to go. So they're gonna target the dock worker and the herbalist, who are still out front. So against the dock worker, that's a hit for D4 damage. That is a kill. Dock worker goes down. And against the herbalist, that is also a hit and also a kill. So we're down to just these 2 for this round of combat. Not great. But if the soldier strikes true, it might work out. So the soldier's gonna charge in with his spear. He does hit, but only for 2 points of damage. Not great. And the merchant will swing this torch now instead of the dagger. He rolled a fumble. And he rolled a 1 on the fumble table. Your incompetent blow makes you the laughing stock of the party, but otherwise causes no damage. Okay. Not great. We got 2 more characters lined up, though. We have the guild beggar. Great. And a second dock worker. Yeah, this one. Okay, the guild beggar has 1 hit point, 14 strength, 11 personality, 11 intelligence, 13 luck. And that actually... okay, that's supposed to give him an extra hit point. Oh, but he has minus 1 stamina. Fuck. That sucks. Okay. And he has a sling, so he actually has a ranged weapon. He comes with a chain and some crutches. I don't know if he has any ammo for it, the sling, but we'll just assume he does. So 1d4 plus 1 on the sling. quite sure. Are you interpreting this as a melee weapon? Because it's definitely not a melee weapon. It shouldn't be a melee weapon. It's a sling, dude. You don't punch with it. 40, 80, 160. There. Yeah, plus 0, 1d4 damage. Not great. Especially because we're in close quarters and he'd have to shoot it into melee. So he has -1 for that. The dock worker, the second dock worker, maybe they were buddies. Probably. He's got 2 hit points, 13 strength, 14 agility. -1 luck, though, so he's not good at finding and disabling traps. It's the least of his concerns. So he does have +1 to melee attack and damage with his staff. Could be worse. Alright, so we have a 1 injured undead with 4 hit points. The other one has 6. It's a new round, so they get to go again. They're going to strike at the soldier and the merchant now. So against the soldier, that is a hit for 1 damage. Okay, he's still there. He's still there. And against the merchant, that is actually a miss, but it's a grazing hit for 1 damage. So that still kills the merchant. Shame. Okay. We get to go. The dock worker is going to pick up that long sword. He's not going to fuck around. So he's going to go off the ground, pick up this long sword. And yeah, it doesn't recalculate the numbers, but that is correct, so that's good. The beggar could pick up a torch now, assuming it didn't go out. If I was being more anal, we'd probably roll to see if the torches go out when they get dropped. But I think for our purposes, we'll just assume there's still a lit torch somewhere. So we're gonna... Okay, that's fine. Okay. So I have to roll up another set, but that's next round. We're going to pile onto this injured one. So the soldier is going to try to stab with the spear. Miss. Guild beggar is going to slap with the torch. Miss. And the longsword from the new dock worker. Also a miss. 3 misses in a row is not good for our chances. This is quite the bloody battle here we got going on. Usually funnels, you kind of want to avoid these just straight up fights like this. Usually funnels are more fun when it's just like traps and shenanigans and like running from stuff. And I mean, fights do break out, of course, but yeah. And again, normally we'd have like 12 characters all involved here. So the fight would be over pretty quickly. We're kind of slowly drip feeding deaths. But let's roll up another set of 4. Oh, we got another squire. Okay. New squire coming in. Yep, this is the new one. 4 hit points on this bad boy. Sort of above average stats on everything, but not great. -1 agility, +1 stamina. So he has the longsword, but not much he really gets to do with it. Also, the steel helmet. I don't know if that actually impacts anything. I don't think so. Just a fun little helmet. Okay. Alright, so new round. The undead are relentless here. They're going to be trying to kill the soldier. And they're going to try to kill this dock worker with the longsword. So against the soldier, crit. Now, I don't know. I assume monsters roll on crit tables. Critical hit scored by monsters should be narrated in corners. Yeah, okay. So, crit U/D6. U/D6. I don't know what that means exactly. But I assume we're just rolling on crit table 1 with a D6. Which you rolled a 5. Solid strike to torso. Inflict plus 1d6 damage with this strike. Alright, yeah, so they just eviscerate this soldier. Just shred his torso nearly in half. So he's done. And then the dock worker, also a hit for 2 damage. He's also dead. Dropping like flies here, man. Okay. We're gonna try to kill this injured one. Come on, man. Just roll it. Nope, miss with the longsword. Miss with the torch. This is terrible. This is... I mean, I know we only have like a 40% chance to hit, but still, this is crazy. Shouldn't be this tough. Okay, well, we got more. We have a beekeeper. Holy shit. This is fucking Jason Statham. And we have an orphan. With 6 hit points. Oh my god. Okay, so the beekeeper has only 2 hit points, but a 17 strength, 15 stamina, 12 personality, 13 intelligence, 12 luck. So he gets plus 2 to melee attacks and melee damage. And he comes with a staff. He'll probably be picking up the longsword, though. Or the spear. Maybe the spear would be good. Yeah, maybe he grabs the spear and shield off the soldier. Yeah, I wish there was a way to just reapply. I mean, normally you don't copy over shit this much. But yeah, I guess just put in 1d8 damage. Damage bonus, which they won't let me put in. Thank you. And it does have... Oh no, okay, we got it, yeah. There you go. 1d8 plus 2 to hit. Oh. So he's got 10 AC. Not super good. And then the orphan has a club. It's not going to be very good with it. He does have 13 agility. So he's better with ranged weapons. And 17 stamina. Giving him 6 hit points. He's some bag of meat. Okay, it's a new round. So they're going to be going for the guild beggar and the squire. So against the guild beggar, that is a hit for 3 damage, which is enough to kill the guild beggar. Who I think has the torch. So maybe that'll just fly out of his hands into the orphan's hands to make things simple for us. And then against the squire, that is also a hit for 2 damage. Luckily, he's a little tankier. Okay, we gotta be able to do this. We got some beefy characters here. Let's make it happen. The beekeeper's had enough of this. He's watched enough. He's gonna stab this injured one with his spear. 13, 10 fucking points of damage. Maxed it out. That's 100% a kill. He skewers the shit out of it. Again, it's not technically dead, but for our purposes, it sure is dead. Then the orphan swings his torch. Nope. Roll the 2. And the squire with the long sword. Also a miss. Okay. Not great, but we're down to 1 left. We'll bring in the woodcutter, I guess. Not good stats at all. -1 to melee attack and damage with his hand axe. But he does have 4 hit points, so it's not too bad. Okay, new round. The undead is going to swing at this orphan. He fumbled. Boy. Now, I don't know if it mentions fumble tables at all or anything like that. No. It doesn't really talk about monsters rolling fumbles. Fumble for monsters. There is not a fumble table for monsters in the book. Okay, yeah, I mean, they're unarmored. So, we're gonna just use the D4 for their fumble. Roll the 2. You trip, but may recover with a DC 10 reflex save, otherwise you must spend the next round prone. Ooh, that could be pretty valuable to us. So, a DC 10 reflex save, you have a +0. He fails, so he does drop prone on the ground, which is great. Because that means we all get a +2 on our roll. Excellent. Now is our time. We will slay this. The beekeeper has had enough. He's going to get his second kill here. So he gets a +4 total. So he rolled a 12, which is a hit. 5 points of damage. That's not quite enough to kill it. The woodcutter. So he's going to add 2 to this roll. That's a miss. The orphan with the torch. That is a hit. 4 points of damage. Dead. Dead as shit. I think this one might actually be dead because it's fire, right? Yeah. So he burns it with fire. And it writhes and actually dies. Jesus. Okay. That was pretty intense. We went through quite a few characters there. There's a pile of bodies. But we got it. The beekeeper, man. Doesn't fuck around. Okay, let's have the woodcutter take another torch. So we have a couple torches at least. And there is another longsword, I think, lying on the ground. So that could be taken. I don't think there's any armor, and I think there's only 1 shield. I guess there's another steel helmet, but I don't know if I care about that. So I suppose the orphan. The orphan stands the best chance of surviving, so we're going to give the orphan the other longswords. We'll ditch this club. He'll take the other longsword. There we go. Okay. Well, that's fucking horrible, but we survived. I mean, I technically have no limit to the amount of characters. And when you do a funnel, you never run out of characters. There is no like, well, sorry, you're done. Please sit there and wait for the rest. There's always another peasant somewhere. You know, it's up to the DM or the judge or whatever you want to call it to figure out how that person shows up. Sometimes they're just part of the big pack that you came in with. Sometimes you like find them in the dungeon as like a prisoner or something like that. It doesn't matter. There always has to be another. You always have to have one character available to you, no matter how unlucky you might be. Which is part of kind of the slapstick fun of the whole thing, is that there's always just another peasant lined up. So yes, I have unlimited peasants. No matter what, I will get through this. Okay, so we have 2 doors, and then there's coins on the floor. Coins on the floor are quite real, a collection of 15 ancient Thracian gold staters that on their face are worth 2 gold pieces each. However, if sold to a collector of antiquities, they could easily fetch 10 times as much. Upon examination of the coins, PCs with appropriate occupations, elven artisan, elven sage, halfling moneylender, merchant, etc., immediately recognize that the coins are worth far more than their apparent face value, although finding a buyer for the coins could be quite difficult. I mean, we had some merchants, but I think the beekeeper is just going to pick up the coins. So they're a collection of 15 coins that are worth 2 gold pieces each. So let's just add 30 gold. Make it simple. That's a pretty good get. How does XP work in this game? Yeah, I mean, that's skill checks. That has nothing to do with... Right, okay. Blah, 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 blah. Uses an extremely simple XP system. Each encounter is worth from 0 to 4 XP, and those XP are not earned merely by killing monsters, disarming traps, looting treasure, or completing a quest. Rather, successfully surviving encounters earns the character's XP. A typical encounter is worth 2 XP. System scales from 0 to 4 depending on difficulty. All characters that participate receive the same XP, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yeah, it's not really an old school system. It's a fairly new, modernized kind of... Yeah, I mean, sort of Tales of Argosa-esque kind of thing. So it's just based on encounters, surviving encounters. However you surmount them. It's not based on gold or anything like that. For funnels, though, typically it's just like we don't track XP. If you survive the funnel, you hit level 1, and that's the end of it. Right. So we're not really going to track that XP, but okay. But that's interesting. It's not based on gold or anything like that. So we have 2 doors, one on our left, one on our right, and an intersection further up with this like nice little painting on the floor. I think that we're going to try out the doors first. So I guess we'll have the beekeeper listen to 2-3 to see if he hears anything. So that's just going to be an intelligence check. He rolled a 13. I guess I didn't really set DC or anything like that, as I was kind of looking at the skill section. Right. So, skills by occupation. Level 0 occupation determines the basic skills you can use. which is obviously pretty limited. In general, skill checks are associated with either a field of knowledge or a specific ability score, such as strength or agility. Here's a list of common skill checks in a dungeon and the ability score is associated with them. So balancing is agility, breaking down doors, strength, climbing, strength or agility. Listening is luck. Oh, it's luck. Searching and spotting is intelligence. Sneaking is agility. If the skill is trained, the character rolls a d20. Otherwise, he rolls a d10. Then the appropriate modifiers are applied to the roll. It's a little bit of a tricky system. It's not really... Like, I would assume a beekeeper is not trained in listening at a door, so he'd roll a d10 plus his luck modifier, which means that if it's a DC of 10, you literally just can't succeed unless you roll a 10. You know? I mean, if you have a -1 to your luck, you can never succeed. But I suppose yeah, I mean, the idea is then that a lot of the times you wouldn't really have to roll for, like, a listen check. Because most of the time you'll either hear something or you won't. It's only, like, they literally, like, if it's a cautious footpad that you're trying to hear, you know. In that case, you'd probably want to have a character trained in listening. I don't know if that's one of the things thieves get. No, I don't think so. It's like, what class or what occupation possibly would be trained in listening? Probably not many. That's not really a thing. Targeting Dungeon Crawler Carl. No, we're not going to get much information about that. So no, I don't know when you'd ever get a d20 on a listen check. That's a tricky thing, though, as they're saying. It's like, you'd really only have to roll if there's, like, someone being really quiet, like, really sneaky quiet. But if I don't have the player roll, then they just know that, okay, there's nothing sneaky in there. If I have them roll, then they know that, okay, there's something in there. You know, it's like a meta thing. If they roll and they fail, then they know that there was something in there, they just didn't hear it. But then that influences maybe their decision-making, depending on the player. You know, some players can purposefully, like, just avoid metagaming and just be like, no, okay, I charge in there. Even though the player might know, like, okay, there's probably something in there. So on and so forth. You could have them always roll, but that, of course, slows down gameplay and makes it kind of annoying. But if there is something sneaking in there and you don't give them the chance to roll, then it's unfair. So it's really kind of a tricky thing. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Normally, if I was playing Tales of Argosa, you know, it'd be a perception check. And if they ask to roll, if they ask to listen, I would always just have them roll. Even if there's nothing in there, it's just fuck it. You know, we always roll just to avoid that sort of metagaming thought. You know, players can't base anything around their failure because they always roll. So whether there's something in there or not, there's a roll. I guess that's probably the best way to do it. The only thing I'm thrown off with that equation here specifically is the idea that if they're untrained, it's a D10 roll. And I don't know when you'd ever be trained in listening as level 0 occupation. Yeah. But a lot of these, it's like, I don't know when you'd have, like, for breaking down doors, when would you have an occupation that would be trained in? There's no occupation. You can't name a single occupation on this fucking level 0 list that would be trained in breaking down doors. So I think for a lot of those sort of, like, general tasks, I would just say, fuck it, just roll a d20. The d10 would come in if it would be something more specifically like an activity that you would require training in to really do, like skinning a hide or something like that. It'd be like, okay, like that is a more delicate task that would require training in to do properly, or you know, identifying a rare gem or something. You know, I don't know. You know, there's all sorts of stuff that would be specifically related to an occupation that would require training in. Making cheese, for example. I don't know. But yeah, if I think for these general things, you're probably just rolling a d20 and not giving a shit about it. So, yeah, in this case, yeah, I should roll a luck with a d20. And he rolled a 14. Now, luck checks are usually a roll under thing, which I didn't mention. I don't think that applies to this. I think that's just normally if the DM calls for a luck roll. Yeah. Characters can make luck checks to attempt feats that succeed based on luck alone. The judge will provide the specifics of any attempt, but the attempt is usually resolved by rolling equal to or less than the character's luck score on a d20. That one's a bit trickier. That one I think you really benefit from reading various DCC modules and just seeing if that comes up. So I don't know if this specifically... I guess it could be. Yeah, I guess this could be. The whole idea of this is just basically like, do you happen to be listening at the door and get lucky enough when something on the other side makes a noise? I prefer Tales of Argosa in the perception system. But I understand why this would be the way it is. It's just a matter of timing rather than like, are you a really good listener? But I think that the perception system just wraps it all up with a nice bow of... Like if you're trying to hear something being sneaky, that's not a luck-based thing. But I don't know, it's also kind of weird. I mean, are some people just like better trained at listening to stuff? I would probably say so, right? At picking out specific sounds and things like that. I imagine Jason Bourne is a better listener than I am. I don't know. Anyways, let's check 2.3 and see if there is anything to be heard on the other side. I guess if we're doing roll under for the beekeeper, he did fail that roll. Alright, this stone chamber appears a long-forgotten shrine. Stale, damp air fills this subterranean sanctuary. Faded frescoes of mounted warriors and intertwining serpents adorn the walls. A massive, erosion-worn relief dominates the far wall, depicting a bearded rider wielding a staff topped with an eagle grasping lightning bolts. God damn. Before it stands a stained stone altar, flanked by 2 tarnished bronze braziers filled with stagnant water. Rust-caked weapons hang precariously from racks along the walls, bearing silent testimony to the Forgotten God's followers. In each corner, pillars carved with the likenesses of rearing horses seem to watch with hollow, lifeless eyes, their features softened by centuries of dampness. A stillness permeates the air, as if the very rocks yearn for the thunderous hoofbeats and battle cries of long-lost worshippers, their echoes forever trapped in this underground tomb. So, for the record, this is a really bad room description. This is the exact type of room description where you get about halfway through and you can just see your player's eyes glazing over. And you're going to get to the end of this description and they're really not going to have any awareness of what's in the room. And this sort of description is a lot of what old school gaming tries to veer away from in favor of just like bullet point or like big picture, just like boom altar, boom fresco, boom, you know, they're reading this whole big paragraph is just too much. Scientifically proven to be too much for most players to retain any information. And so you're going to have to end up repeating a lot of this multiple times as the players actually step into the room and ask questions. But anyways, it's a shrine. There's faded frescoes on the walls. There's rust-caked weapons hanging precariously from racks. There's some pillars. The room is very still. So, no, there's nothing in here that we would hear. So we go in. The racks on the walls hold 20 short swords, all badly rusted. They are functional, but they snap and crumble to pieces on any natural roll of 5 or less, which is an annoying thing for the DM to keep track of. So I think I'd be pretty just honest with the players if they take any. Okay, so this is a shrine to Zabazios, god of sky and steed, lord of ecstatic mysteries. Thracian god venerated by soldiers for his prowess in battle. The worship of the Thracian god Sabazios has long since vanished, but the god himself remains. He is immediately aware of any mortal beings entering the shrine and seeks to draw their interest to his worship, watching over them and potentially intervening on their behalf during the adventure. This is represented by the granting of 1 temporary luck. At the adventure's end, should a PC seek to pursue the path of a cleric, Sabazios appears to them asking that they rekindle his worship. Should they accept, he grants them a permanent point of luck, as well as granting them a temporary point of luck each month in which they welcome a new follower to the faith. Okay, pay it forward. Okay. Well, so we enter into this room, we look over the temple, the shrine. We don't take any of the rusty short swords. I think we're okay on weapons. But yeah, we feel kind of emboldened a bit by being in here. So we all get 1 temporary luck point. So I guess I'll bump that up to... I mean, technically everyone in the entire peasant pack gets this +1. But hell yeah. So that'll go away at the end of the adventure, if we don't burn it. But we are encouraged to burn. As for burning luck, I think that's done after the dice roll. No, I don't want to say that. I'm not sure now. No, I think it's before. Permanently burn luck to give a one-time bonus to a roll. So you have to burn it before you roll, which is tricky. Okay, that's good. I mean, there's not much else in here. It's a fairly small room, so we'll go and listen at the other door. He did succeed on this check, so if there's anything in there making noise, we'll know about it. I don't think there is. So we'll step in. Dust blankets the floor of this chamber, and cobwebs stretch between rusted sconces, glinting faintly in what little light penetrates the gloom. Along the walls, empty weapon racks stand with their frames warped and cracked with age, and a pair of corroded metal hooks still cling stubbornly to the stone. Near the center of the room, the remains of a heavy wooden table lie in splintered ruin, flanked by a pair of crudely fashioned stone benches. On the south wall, an archway yawns open, its edges chipped and worn smooth. Its foot-worn threshold leads into a smaller chamber. Okay. So, the cobwebs tracing their way across the room are part of the web of the giant tarantula dwelling in Area 2-5. It is immediately aware of anything disturbing the webbing and immediately investigates, preparing to ambush anything approaching the entrance to its lair. So, it'd be pretty hard, I guess, then, to avoid the cobwebs. Although it really only mentions the cobwebs stretching between the rusted sconces. Similar to the puddles here. For the puddles, you had to basically just actively avoid stepping in them. Meaning you had to just tell the DM you were avoiding stepping in them. Doesn't really mention that here. But I would assume... I don't know. I don't have a clear picture of how the cobwebbing is in this room. If it's a more deliberate thing that you'd have to purposefully, like, touch the cobwebbing. There's the cobwebs tracing their way across the room. It is immediately aware of anything disturbing the webbing. If warned by the disturbing of its webbing in the prior room, the giant tarantula is waiting to ambush the prey the moment something comes within range. It's hard to say. Yeah, I mean, based on this image, I feel like you definitely could move around without touching the webbing. You could reduce this to a luck thing, I suppose, and just see if we make our way across. I'm not sure how to adjudicate this one. Like, what's the most fair? Well, yeah, it's a funnel. That's the thing. Like, it's meant to just kind of be dumb and slapstick, which doesn't really feel right. As a DM, it just feels wrong to do shit like that. So, well, and it's also compounded by the fact that we're playing solo, but I usually try to put myself in a DM perspective of how I would run this for players. Like, if it was my family I was DMing for, I don't think anyone would really ever say, like, oh, I'm gonna go over and touch the fucking webbing. So, again, much like the puddles, you'd have to specifically say you're avoiding them. Otherwise, the whole thing's kind of moot. No one's going to say, really, that they're going to touch the webbing. And so if you just assume they're avoiding it, then it's never going to be a problem. I don't really want to reduce it to a dice roll, either. So yeah, I guess I treat it like the puddle. Unless you're specifically saying you avoid the webbing, you're just going to brush up against some of it as you move through the room. In which case, it probably is more beneficial to the players than to reduce it to a dice roll. So yeah, I guess everyone's just gonna roll luck. And you have to roll under, which means the woodcutter is very likely gonna fail. The beekeeper rolled equal. Which is, that does count, okay. The woodcutter failed. The orphan succeeded. The squire failed. So a couple of them just brushed up against some webbing. It's all over the place, you know, so it just happens. Now, if anyone said they specifically were avoiding it, they could have avoided the luck roll. But, for our purposes, our peasants are pretty dumb. None of them are too bright. So, okay. We're moving through the room towards this other entrance, this archway. Beyond the archway is a smaller chamber, its stone floor covered by a soft-looking, mat-like surface that stretches across most of the room. This carpet is particularly thick in one corner, forming a small mound or burrow lined with the same material. Scattered across the floor are the desiccated husks of a number of animals, and the burrow is surrounded by these grim trophies, creating a macabre display. The floor here is covered in webbing, creating a sponge-like surface. Near one wall, the fallen wooden frame of an ancient bed lies half buried under centuries of dust and debris. It now serves as the framework of the spider's burrow, covered with the same silken lining as the floor. Alright, so the spider is here to ambush. So we have to go to surprise rules. I like that it doesn't really actually say what the fuck surprise does. It just says, determine surprise. If the characters are not aware of their opponents or vice versa, they are surprised. That's all it says. And then over here in the overview, it says, before the first round, judge rolls for surprise. Based on results of surprise roll, each player, not character, rolls for initiative. What is surprise? How is this not in the fucking book? Are you serious? How do you just say roll for surprise and then not have a single rule in the book for what that means? Well, it doesn't say... Here it says that you roll for surprise. Here it says determine surprise. If the characters are not aware, they are surprised. Crazy. Surprise characters do not act in the first round of combat. I must say that somewhere. I don't know where, but I must say it somewhere. It's crazy, man. Yeah, I mean, I get not having a round of combat, or, you know, the spider would get a free round of combat first before we roll initiative. I get that. But how do you determine if the party is surprised or not? You know, that That, I think, is where we're... That's Dungeon World. Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those things where if I was just at the table DMing, I would just come up with something and just go for it, but playing solo, I get way more into the nitty-gritty. There's, like, really no fucking answer here. It's crazy. I mean, there's loads of different ways you can do it, right? But yeah, we don't have an answer. The old school way of doing it, like the OSC way of doing it, would be that we roll a d6, and on a 1 or a 2, the party is surprised. That's the old school way of doing it. Which, honestly, that's a pretty slim chance then of the spider actually ambushing you, but it is entirely independent of any skills, abilities, you know, anything to do with the players being capable or not of, like, being aware of an ambush. It's entirely just a flat d6 roll, and on a 1 or a 2. Again, if this were Tales of Argosa, or a more modern game or something like that, it would be like, okay, roll a perception versus the spider's, like, stealth score, or you know, some sort of stealth roll or dexterity roll or something like that. And you either succeed or fail based on that, and then that's based more around the player, like the point man, and his ability to notice something in ambush. That's more how I like to do it. But if you'll notice, like, the stat blocks here don't give stats for, like, as far as, like, the spider's agility score or something like that. It gives saves, it gives hit points, move values, AC, all that kind of stuff, but it's not going to give you something for that. So I don't think we're gonna, I think we're more looking at, like, an old school way of doing it, which would be the d6. So fuck it, we're just gonna do it that way. It's not how I would normally do it, but we're not playing my normal kind of game, so. All right, so we rolled a 5, which means in this case we are not surprised by the spider. So all that really did was that it gave the spider the chance to ambush us. Now, he still has a +3 initiative, so odds are he's still gonna go first. But we saved the opener. If that's not how they want me to do it, then they should have put some text in here to determine how to do it. The best I can do is follow the old school way of doing it. Yeah, which is roll 1 or 2 indicates party surprise. So that's it. So now we're just rolling initiative, and it has a +3. We have a +1 from our orphan. We rolled a 9. He rolls a 12. So the spider does get to go first regardless. The orphan is out front because it's got the most hit points. And it is going to pounce. So it gets a +2 to hit. So it's actually a +6 to hit. The orphan's almost certainly fucked. Yes, roll a 19. So this giant tarantula pounces on this poor orphan. And it's rolling 1d4 +2 damage. 6 damage. That is just enough to kill the orphan. So much for being super durable. So the orphan goes down. The longsword drops again. But the rest of us are ready to deal with this thing, because now, until its next initiative, until its next turn, it has only a 12 AC. It does have 10 hit points, but the Beekeeper could do that in one shot. So at 12 AC, Beekeeper charges in with the spear, rolls a 5, failure. The Woodcutter comes in with the torch. Does hit for 2 points of damage, dropping it down to 8. And the Squire comes in with the longsword. Misses. Okay. That's not great. It is outnumbered, so that could... It's outnumbered and it's been wounded, and we have torches. So that could provoke a morale check to see if it flees. I noticed they don't include a morale number. It must be based on... Morale. With a group of monsters, when the first creature is slain, when half the creatures have been killed or incapacitated, with a single monster when it's lost half its hit points. Yeah, so probably not yet. Morale checks is made by rolling a d20, adding the creature's will save. Result of 11 or higher is a success, and it will keep fighting. Okay. So that's fine. It's a new round of combat. The Tarantula is going to go after the Torch Wielder, the Woodcutter. I guess we probably should get another replacement. I think we have to roll up another set. I guess I could delete some of these. Yeah, okay. We can delete the dock workers, the guild beggar, the herbalist, the merchant, the soldier, the first squire. Okay. Keep the orphan for right now, because I might want to pick up his stuff. We'll generate another set. We got a potato farmer coming in. Okay. The tarantula is going after the woodcutter. And it now is back to 14 AC. And a +4 to its attack. Okay, that's definitely a hit. For... Oh, 1d4 plus 2 damage. Yeesh. Okay, just enough to survive. Whoops. Down to 1, but he also gets hit with the poison. 3d4 plus 1 strength. A DC 14 fort save to reduce it to 1d4 strength damage. He fails his fort save, so he takes 3d4 plus 1. 10 strength damage. Which I think... I don't know if that kills you or not. Target reduced to 0 strength or agility is incapable of movement. Ability loss heals over time. You get 1 point back with a good night rest, 2 points with a whole day of bed rest. This woodcutter is basically out. I mean, he's not coming back for this adventure. So that's that. Yeah, I don't know if we have any torches that are still lit, but just for the sake of not being stuck down here in darkness, we'll keep it rolling. All right, the potato farmer has 4 hit points, 17 stamina, 14 personality, 12 luck. Not amazing, but he's got a pitchfork, which functions as a spear, and he has a duck. Okay. Let's have the beekeeper put this thing out of our misery. Nope, he just barely missed. That would have been a fucking kill. And you can't burn luck after the fact, unfortunately. Damn. Damn, damn. That would have been so nice. Alright, potato farmer. That's a hit. Boom. Drops it down to 1 hit point. That's going to be a morale check. But maybe the squire will just finish it off. Nope, he fumbled. And he rolled a 4 on the fumble table. The weapon is damaged. The sword hilt falls off. Can be repaired with 10 minutes of work, but it's useless for now. Okay. He'll pick up the orphan's longsword then. And we'll ditch this one. So the only other thing we'll take really is the torch. Which he'll also grab. And I guess we can take this iron spike. Alright, you're done. Okay, so now we gotta make a morale check for the spider. It has a will of +0. Okay, it does succeed. This is its home, and it's going to defend it to the last. That's not good for our guys. We're bringing in another character. We have another beetle coming in. 2 hit points, 14 stamina, 16 intelligence, 18 luck, with a +3 to saving throws to escape traps. Okay. That is a lot of luck. Okay, he'll pick up the, he'll just ditch the staff. I don't think we want that. He'll take the hand axe and torch. Okay. And the, who landed the big hit? The potato farmer. So this spider's gonna try to kill him. And that is a hit for D4 +2. Barely alive, but again, the strength problem. Fortitude save. That is a fail, so it's 3d4 +1 strength. It's just so much strength. Okay, -4. Down to 6. Okay, I mean, it's not the end of the world. He's still here. He's still capable. And now we get a full round of attacks. How can we possibly fail? Beekeeper missed. The beetle coming in with the torch. Hit for 2. That's a kill. Hot dog. All right, we didn't lose too many on that. Could have been a lot worse. That's a nasty bite. All right, we will search this spider nest, of course. Amidst the desiccated remains outside the tarantula's burrow is the corpse of a traveling merchant whose remains were dragged down from the surface. The well-dressed corpse wears leather armor and has a long sword and a pouch holding 75 silver and 40 gold pieces. Jesus. Peering inside the burrow reveals a web-lined tunnel leading up to the surface. Okay, so we finally have some armor. Yeah, I probably like the beekeeper the best. He is our guy. He's got the shield. We'll give him some leather armor. I don't know if we have that as like a compendium or something. No, we have like nothing. You have nothing just like stored away? Apparently nothing. Crazy. Alright, then we'll just add leather armor, and I gotta look up the stats. It's +2 to AC, -1 check penalty, and a D8 fumble die. That's alright. Leather armor. +2, -1, 1d8 fumble die. Alright, 12 AC. Not bad. Do I want to ditch the spear for a longsword? Does that have any value? No. The spear is strictly better, right? Because the spear gets a double damage on a mounted charge. Longsword gets nothing. And the spear costs like 3 times less. So I don't know why you'd ever use a longsword. Which I guess is true historically. The spear is just better. Spear supremacy. We always stand spears around here. Okay, that's fine. There's also the money, which I guess we'll take. 75 silver, 40 gold. Big money. And there's the longsword, which I guess we could give to the beetle. Sure. Alright. Good. Well, we don't want to go back to the surface. We still have to solve the situation here. 'Cause people are disappearing. And we haven't... I don't think it was those... Well, it could have been those 3 ghouls. I don't think it was the giant spider, so we got to keep going. So... Next would be checking out this painting on the floor or whatever. So we approach 2.6. Cautiously. The 4-way intersection's floor features striking shardwork of brightly colored stone, forming a rustic mosaic depicting a forest scene. Trees stand in silent array. Above the trees, the silhouette of a large bird, perhaps an eagle, takes flight. This intersection is trapped with slender scything blades that swing from the walls of the east and west passages, striking anyone in the junction of the 4 halls. Detecting the trap itself is difficult due to the placement of the blades. However, the button to deactivate the trap is discoverable with a successful DC 8 untrained intelligence check. PCs with appropriate occupations, such as trappers and artisans, make this a trained check. Alright, so obviously we're going to be inspecting this this thing. I think this is a little too ominous. I don't think that's far-fetched. We already know there's dangerous traps around with blades and stuff. I don't think any of these characters count as being trained, so it's just an untrained check. So we'd be just rolling this, untrained. And he rolled a 4, so the beekeeper doesn't really notice anything. But the beetle is very intelligent, so he'll roll. No, he rolled a 9. Instead of DC... Oh, DC 8! Oh, yes, we got it. So yes, the beetle. So, so methodical, looking over this. He does see that there is a... The eagle silhouette looks like it could be pressed. I think then we would still be kind of prudent about this, and we'd stand far back, and we'd use like the pitchfork or a staff or something to push the eagle, and we'd have the beetle be the brave one to do it because he discovered it. Although I feel like he would figure himself to not be as expendable, so maybe he'd force the potato farmer to do it. Okay, so yeah, the potato farmer pushes the silhouette, and we hear a big click sound. At that point, it's just based on hoping that it's disarmed, so we'll convince the potato farmer to step onto the painting, the mosaic, and nothing happens. So we're okay. Okay, so now we can go south or north. I guess we'll go south. And the beekeeper's leading the way again as we head down towards 2-8. The hallway opens up into a triangular chamber. Its smooth, damp stone walls converge towards a central depression filled with gentle, steaming water. The air is thick with humidity and carries a distinct mineral scent, a blend of sulfur and something vaguely metallic. The floor around the pool is slick with moisture, and in places, colorful mineral blooms create abstract patterns on the stone. Worn stone steps lead down into the water, their edges softened by centuries of mineral buildup. Along the walls, tarnished metal hooks and corroded sconces hint at the chamber's former purpose. The water's surface ripples slightly, disturbed by an unseen source feeding the springs. In the dim light, the liquid takes on a milky, opalescent quality. Okay, so we see this weird pool of water and stuff. This is exactly the sort of thing that you would just never go near. Like, there's really nothing to be gained. It's one of those situations where it's just like, you're better off not engaging with the game and just leaving, you know? Because what are you really going to gain out of this? Maybe there's something at the bottom of the pool of water, but usually it's like not easy to get. Usually the pool is like acid, or there's something in it that's going to attack you, and then maybe you get a reward out of it if you survive. But it's hard to say. Most of the time I would say it's not worth the trouble, and you should just turn around. And I would say probably that's where my characters are leading, but let's read and see what's going on. This once small underground grotto was expanded to create a bath by the Legionnaires, allowing them to soak in its mineral-rich waters. Since it fell into disuse, the mineral-rich waters have become home to a species of giant archaea. These near-transparent, single-celled creatures, each a chunk of living jelly roughly the size of a fist, lie on the bottom of the pool, but arise as a swarm if anything enters the water in hopes of feeding. The archaea continue to feed on the corpses of their victims, digesting them and becoming more visible. 3 corpses, or their equivalent in meat, including starting trade good animals, will sate the swarm, leaving their hunger satiated for 30 days. Right. Over time, a number of small items have collected on the bottom of the 5-foot deep pool. Among the bright mineral deposits may be found a number of sundry items. Once an item is found, a further roll of the same result indicates that nothing more remains to be found in the bath. So these are the things you could get. A badly rusted iron helmet, 5 D14 ancient copper coins worth 5 silver each to a collector, tarnished silver signet ring worth 8 gold, 1d7 ancient Thracian silver coins worth 1 gold each to a collector, 2d5 ancient Thracian gold coins worth 20 gold pieces to a collector, a mineral encrusted spyglass, a pair of bone dice, or a mithril dagger. Yeah, it's really just meh. So I think what I would probably do, and I think what many people would do, is just like throw a rock into the pool and just see what happens. And I think that's probably what I would do here. And I think when that rock hits the water, I think probably we see a big swarm sort of come up and disturb the water and just sort of swarm over the rock and stuff. And then the pool becomes still again. And I think at that point, it's like maybe you have a party with some sort of idea of dealing with this swarm of some, you know, I think it would be pretty tricky to like identify the creatures. It looks like just chunks of jelly just swarming in the water. But probably you'd just be like, fuck that. But that's always why I'm interested when I do these solo. I'm interested in then running them for my family and just seeing how they deal with these situations without my sort of metagaming and, you know, knowledge and stuff. But yeah, like my initial instinct was just to avoid this, and that rock throw just confirms it. So fuck that. We really don't have a good way of dealing with this. So screw it. We're going north. And that leads then to another intersection here. But we can see something to the west, so let's take a look at 2-7. This hexagonal room was obviously a place of great importance to its builders. 4 candle-top stone altars are present, one at each cardinal point, while each of the intercardinal points holds a brazier made of beaten copper. At the center of devotion sits a fluted stone pedestal topped by a central indentation. Obviously meant to hold something smaller than a halfling's fist, it lies empty. The remains of what were likely once brightly colored tapestries ring the floor of the chamber, long since having torn free from their mountings as they rotted. Okay. Before I read further, I kind of want to just think about this room and what I would do if that was what was described to me. So there's 4 candle-topped stone altars, one at each cardinal point, while each of the intercardinal points holds a brazier made of beaten copper. At the center is a fluted stone pedestal topped by a central indentation, obviously meant to hold something smaller than a halfling's fist. So yeah, we see the braziers, we see the stone altars, and then the one at the middle that's meant to hold something small. The only thing we really have that we got is like the coins. Oh, also, we do have flint and steel. I knew someone would have it. Yeah, the only thing we have is the coins, but I can't imagine that's what's meant to go in the spot there. You know, for all I know, it could be blood. I think obviously the first thing you do is just kind of search the whole room, check all the altars out, see if there's any inscriptions or anything like that to give you further clues. It says, upon entering, dwarves and miners immediately noticed that in contrast to the simpler efforts of stonework elsewhere, meticulous care was taken with the construction of this room. The walls are well and solidly built, and the 4 altars made with exacting care. It's built to hold the Resurrection Stone, the greatest of artifacts entrusted to any members of the Lost Thracian Legion. This room held a great place of great spiritual significance to all Thracians. Now that the stone is in the hands of Gallus, the Ghoul King, this once sacred chamber lies defiled and empty. Still, some of the stone's power lingers on. Atop each of the altars sits a single low-burnt candle stub, each of which will burn for no longer than 1 turn. If all 4 candles atop the altars are simultaneously lit, a magical wave washes over all living creatures in the reliquary, imbuing them with power and granting a permanent +1 increase to their max hit point. Damn. Would I have thought to do that? Probably not. Probably not. Let's, yeah, I mean, I guess I could, yeah. I don't think I would have thought to do it. That's always the trouble with solo. I could leave it to a dice roll. Like we could do just like a standard 50-50 with disadvantage or something. But yeah, I don't think I would have thought to do it. And I don't think my family would think to do it either, but you never know. I think they'd try and put some stuff in this center thing. But thankfully it doesn't do anything bad. Yeah, I'm just going to skip it because I don't think I would have thought of it. And I'm not going to give myself an opportunity to just get a bonus that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So, it's fine. But yeah, obviously, searching the room, we don't find any text or inscriptions or anything. Okay, that then leads down this hallway. And there is a door on our right. So we're going to listen at the door. And we succeeded. Actually, the beetle has a fucking 18 luck, dude. He can't fail. So this is 2-9. No, I don't think we hear anything, so the beekeeper will enter. This room is cramped with decrepit-looking triple bunk beds, their wooden frames sagging with the ravages of time. 10 sets of narrow bunks jut out from the walls to either side of the door. There is a mere 1 foot of space for navigation between each set of bunks. There are no signs of foot lockers or other such storage for personal items on the floor, leaving this room stark in its apparent emptiness. The back wall of the room is covered in ancient graffiti. Okay. Much of the graffiti is what one might expect from off-duty soldiers who are trying to pass the time. Suthus was here, Bithus owes Codus 5 drachma, and Spartacus fights for us all. Although near the northeast corner is a crude representation of a soldier with a serpent's head. Beneath it reads, Chrysobleptes is not what he seems. Hidden in the ticking of the upper bunk nearest to the graffiti of Chrysobleptes' shocked former comrade is a scroll case. Inside is a vial of milky white liquid and crumbling piece of correspondence. It contains instructions from someone calling themselves the Coiled Vizier of the Scaled Dominion, ordering Chrysobleptes to steal the Resurrection Stone. He is further instructed to rendezvous with a small group intending to raid remaining Thracian artifacts. Detailed instructions of where to find the Caverns of Thracia are included. Well, that's valuable. The liquid in the vial is a single dose of Lethi's water, meant to cloud the minds of any who may have discovered the spy in their midst. It permanently clouds the memories of whomever drinks it, making them utterly forget the last 2d10 plus 10 days, and inflicting a permanent -1 die penalty to all occupational and intelligence-based skill checks. Ouch. DC 8 willpower save to negate. The contents of the vial constitute a single dose and are meant to be used only in the direst of emergencies. Alright, so let's... I think if the players say, hey, we search the room. We're going to search the room really methodically. There's no dice roll in that case. Like, you just find this. It takes time, and that's usually the downside, is that it takes time. And we would be keeping track of the torch timers and have random encounters. But you'll notice there was no random encounter list for this place. It's meant to just be pretty simple. So in our case, yeah, we find this. We find the vial of this liquid, which definitely nobody's drinking. Even if I didn't know what it does. Like, you don't drink shit like that without really knowing what it does. And we are just peasants, so yeah, we'll take it. But the main thing is, yeah, we have now instructions of where to find the Caverns of Thracia, which will come in handy later. Alright, then we're going to go to the next room, and we will listen. The beetle will listen. Boom, no problem. Tricky. Tricky. There's definitely going to be combat here, I can almost guarantee. And not easy combat. It's also getting pretty lengthy. We're definitely not done yet, and I'm getting pretty hungry, so I'm probably going to leave it right here. We can pick this up and figure out what exactly I figure out about this room next time. Yeah, it's pretty slow going. Part of that is just due to me not being super familiar with DCC. Yeah, I mean, so far it's hard to say, because DCC, I think I really want to get to higher level stuff. Because once you actually get to classes, it comes much more into its own as a game. The warriors get the D die, the magic system is really awesome, all that sort of stuff. Just doing the big funnel stuff, it's meant to be kind of just quick and just burn through it and stuff, and we're playing it obviously a bit more methodically. And slower pace because we only have 4 characters at a time. Without that, just playing the funnel, it's sort of like, why wouldn't I rather just play like Tales of Argosa if I want something more modernized, or just like I don't know, OSC or something for more simple traditional stuff. But yeah, we will get to why I think DCC is a pretty fun system. Which it is sort of funny, because then it's like, why did you start with a funnel then if it's not a good part of the system? Yeah, that's true. I wanted to do this Grave Robbers of Thracia as a nice intro. But I do think, even though DCC kind of popularized the funnel mechanic, I think there probably are better systems to run funnels with. Like I think Shadow Dark funnels are pretty quick and fun and easy. And I did a funnel for my family using Tales of Argosa that I thought went really well. So, yeah, it's hard to say. But, I don't know. I think it's just probably the way that I'm running it. I'm just running it a bit too slow. Because I've done a bunch of DCC funnels at conventions, and they are just kind of slapstick madness, whereas I'm trying to run this like a proper dungeon crawl. I think it's hard to do that sort of madness solo, because you can't juggle that many characters. But anyways, we'll finish this next time. We'll get to level 1. We'll go on to Caverns of Thracia, and all will be well. For now, though, my name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Manging. And I'll see you fine folks in the next part.